Welcome to another episode of the Impossible Life Podcast. I'm your co-host, Nick Surface, and I'm looking across at a man who recently developed a vaccination for fear using 3 liters of his own sweat, a pint of Wolverine blood, pure adrenaline, and Mountain Dew. That's right, friends, the former Navy SEAL, Garrett Unclebach, a man who makes MacGyver's inventions look like a middle school science project.
I love that you threw Mountain Dew in there.
Yeah.
Very appropriate.
Yeah, I was like, there's got to be one outside ingredient that people wouldn't see coming, and it would definitely be Mountain Dew.
Hey, man, like, when in doubt.
Yeah. I've always said this.
When in doubt, a bunch of sugar and caffeine.
Yeah. Dude,
Just get geeked out.
I've said this since I was like 18 years old. You always know when a person has a problem with like soda if they drink Mountain Dew. Because normal people don't load up with like a 20 ounce or like go get like, oh yeah, they got the 64 ounce big gulp. Like if you're at that point and you drink Mountain Dew, I'm not judging you, but just know you have a problem.
Mountain Dew is pharmaceutical grade soda.
That's such a great way of describing it. Pharmaceutical grade soda. Who wouldn't want that? Anyways, G, we just shared a few of our own beliefs on soda pop, and look at that for a transition. That's what we're talking about today is beliefs. And I wanted to talk about this one because, I don't think we talk about beliefs a lot. And a few weeks ago, we laid out on identity and attitude, and we talked about how beliefs are the base foundation of your identity. But we haven't talked about actual beliefs where we've gone into how they're formed and dove into them since I think episode 3.
It was early on.
It was number 3.
And I'm sure there's plenty of people. Shout out to all the new listeners.
Yeah.
I know there's quite a, well, we don't think, we know, we can see the numbers.
Yeah.
So awesome. Thank you guys for being here.
Yes.
And I know a lot of you go back to the very beginning.
They do.
Which is a fun experience, I'm sure. Go back to the beginning and listen all the way through. You get to hear our growth, hear a lot of things. And you, if you did that, if you've already done that, you'll hear a lot of things on belief. But in the meantime, or also as a refresher, we're gonna expand on beliefs, and we'll also kind of hit the foundation a little bit today too, as well.
For sure, we're gonna expand on them. We're going to give you 3 beliefs that will unleash you, or 4 beliefs that will unleash you, and we're also going to give you 2 beliefs that will absolutely destroy you. And the amazing thing about beliefs is everybody is being dictated to by their beliefs all the time, right? Like we all have beliefs. The challenge is if somebody said, "What do you believe?" you might fall down. Well, fortunately, there's people like Pew Research Center who go around and ask people questions like, "Do you believe in X?" The thing that's so interesting is I know when they ask these questions, they don't go, "Oh, and here's how we define belief."
Yeah.
They just ask people like, "Do you believe?" So this is a great thing for America because here you go, G. 86%, according to Pew Research Center, believe that humans have a soul or spirit, which is good. That's the vast majority of America. The other 14%, I mean, I don't know what they're doing. Like you have no soul or spirit.
You said 83%?
86% believe that humans have a soul or spirit.
Okay.
83% believe in God or a universal spirit, which is great. 79% believe there is something spiritual beyond the natural world. Okay. 67% believe in heaven. 55% believe in hell. Now, I knew you would enjoy that. Really think about the implications of some of these. Okay, so 86 are going, we have a solar spirit. 83% are saying that there's a God.
There's an interesting delta between all of those, but the what was it? 67 believe in heaven,
55 in hell.
That's just some wishful thinking.
It is, but I didn't read these to you on purpose because I knew that you would enjoy that. But it's amazing to see that when we get into this, you'll understand why we're amazed by that more. But I think it's amazing how few, because like if you believe in hell, this means that at a base level, I think people do have some grasp that if I say I believe in this, there's a burden of proof that's required of it, right? Because what we will talk about a lot is people will say they believe in God, but then you look at their actions and you're like, man, but like maybe which God do you know? Like who's this God that you believe in? Because the way that you're acting is not the God of the Bible, right? Like that's where
just quick example and probably my favorite story in the Bible on this, and shout out to everyone who comes to Mighty Men. You get to hear this every Saturday.
There you go.
Right? Great example of this is God rescues the Israelites out of Egypt, gives them Moses as a leader, and God performs 40 miracles from the time that God first speaks to Moses to the time that the Israelites are standing on the edge of the promised land. Okay, some pretty big miracles in there, including parting the Red Sea and then swallowing up the army of the most powerful nation in the world as they pursue an unarmed slave people. Okay, they're thinking there's no way out of this, and God makes a way.
Yes.
And then even while they're in the desert, God performs miracles. God feeds them. God gives them water. God guides them through the desert. And so like there's women and children. I think it was almost 1 million people.
Yeah.
This is 600,000 men. That's the number I do remember.
Crazy.
600,000 grown men. But then there's the women and the children. So over 1 million people. It's a lot of people to feed. So in this, they experience God completely. And all of these people, they're not saying, I don't know if I believe in God.
Right.
I don't know if I'm into that, know, like with the numbers say today, where people can just live this experience and say, I don't believe in God.
For real. Yeah.
Every single one of those people would have hit yes on the question.
100%.
Everyone, yes, of course. What do you mean, do I believe in God? But then they got tested in it.
Right.
Right. This was going to the promised land, and God says to go, and you're saying, I don't know if I like that idea.
Right.
That seems kind of scary. Are you sure that we could go up against these giants and take these fortified cities?
Very good, G.
So 100% of the people would be like, oh yeah, sure, I believe in God. But 100% of the people were not willing to bet on God.
Right.
And that's really what a belief is about.
Right. And if you read in Psalms 103, it says he showed Moses his ways and he showed the people his deeds. And that's the difference. Moses knew God where they didn't. And there's that, like you talk about, whenever you get into a difficult circumstance, don't fall back on what's going to happen. Fall back on the certainty of the nature of God. Well, if you don't have the nature of God, those people, like you said, they would have said, yes, we believe in him. Do you know him? No. And I think that's where you're not willing to make a bet on somebody you don't know.
Right.
Like if someone said, hey, Garrett's got to take this shot to save your life, I'd be like, great. I trust him 100%. If it was like, hey, this dude you haven't met is going to take a shot and it's really important for your life, I'd be like, right. And that's a really simple example, but it helps people to grasp it.
Right.
And that's the power of beliefs. So the reason I wanted to cover this episode, we're just going to jump straight in. I was saying to Garrett, I was like, so this is, I've had an interesting summer, right? Like my past 3 months have not.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, it's been disruptive to say the least. And I don't typically like to share a lot of things about myself, too much stuff about what I'm going through when I'm going through it. But what I will say is,
you started your summer like Billy Madison, prepared for hockey tryouts.
yeah, that's about right. It was Happy Gilmore.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I would just go down there and stand in front of the pitching machine and take a bunch of shots to the chest. And that's what it's been. So like I have this belief, okay. And this is why I wanted to share this with people. I have a belief that men are made to be strong. You've heard us talk about it on this podcast, and it's not something that I'm like, oh, like I'm telling you, it's in my soul. Like I believe it with all of my being that God made men to be strong. And I think one of the worst things you could do is to not realize that. And the way that works out is that whenever you have difficulty and weight, you go, oh, good, I'm made for this. Like you talk about it, it's the equivalent of someone giving you a weight vest and you cry about it for your birthday.
It's a nice gift.
Right. But instead you're just like, oh, man, thanks. Why'd you get me that? Dude, you're supposed to be strong.
That's what a lot of men act like, unfortunately.
Right.
When they go through struggles in their life, they cry about God's giving you an opportunity to grow. And you're saying, why is this so heavy? Why'd you give this to me?
Yeah. Whereas if you believe you're supposed to be strong, I'm like, oh, well, it's a good thing I'm here because I'm supposed to, like, this is what I'm supposed to do, right? Very different thought process. So this summer, I won't go into deep detail, but like our summer started off with a leak in our house that was very disruptive. Had to rip up our whole downstairs flooring, tear out the kitchen sink. We got relocated eventually, like after dealing with a very difficult adjuster who eventually got fired. We then 3 months later finally got relocated to another property for 3 weeks so they could do the work that needed to be done. Praise the Lord, we literally just got back in yesterday. So that was like, okay, whatever. It's inconvenient. Well, then my wife's mother has a stroke, like a hemorrhagic brain stroke, which if you know that, it's a bleed on the brain. You can die from that. And we were apart when this happened. Thank God she happened to be over there. And I wake up to a text early in the morning. And it's like, how do you support your wife from 5,000 miles away? And you do what the best thing you could do. You pray like crazy. You make sure you're supportive, and you do whatever it takes to make sure that they can stay there. Then she comes back. Well, then my wife has a health issue, which I won't go into, that was very disruptive and lasted about 3.5 weeks. Required us going to the urgent care and doing multiple things. And so. And I also have 3 kids that are, that while we're being disruptively relocated to an Airbnb. Well, all this has been going on. And I remember I said to Garrett, because Garrett and I talk about this stuff, I never once felt sorry for myself. I never once was like, oh, this is hard. I didn't even lose my peace because my thought process, I actually reveled in it. I remember I was driving my wife to the urgent care after being up since like 3 a.m. or whatever it was. and I had to fly out to a wedding that
You
night.
also have a job in there, too.
Yeah, I have, and I'm having the busiest year of my life in a great way. God's blessing us, and obviously there's the cost associated with all this. Like, we've had multiple appliances blow up as well, which I haven't even talked. So like, this is all stuff that's happened now for a lot of people, and understandably, this would be like, oh man, this has been terrible. It's been one thing after another. Not only have I not felt like that, when I was driving my wife to the urgent care, I actually felt like an incredible sense of joy, like I'm supposed to be doing this. And I took great pride in taking the best possible care of my wife and doing whatever I could, because I was like, you know what? I want my wife to know that her husband will never be a guy that shirks the price that needs to be paid to support her. So I was actively going, my wife is going to come out of this knowing her husband will do whatever it takes because he's strong. And I took great joy in that. And so I'm not saying all like, look, I just want to say my wife, I always forget to tell this part. And people are like, was your mom's wife okay? Yes, God did a miraculous miracle. She went from being like all these things that the doctors say to you if you've ever experienced a stroke to 4 weeks later, she's just out doing everything normal. Not even, no sag to her face, no limp, anything. I just want people to know God heals. He does miracles. There was a bunch of people. We're in an incredible community of people here, as well as my father-in-law who's been on the podcast. You know him. He is a man of God, and God stepped in. And so it's amazing to see my mother-in-law, and I just want to make sure we publicly have it. God does miracles. He touched her. She recovered. It's amazing. Also, my wife is mending, so we're getting back in the house. So everything's coming good eventually.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord. But the point I'm making is because of my belief, not one time in there was I ever like, oh, man, when's this going to be over? Garrett, like, I wasn't going, Garrett, I was just like, okay, this is what I'm made to do.
Right.
And it was so powerful. I said to Garrett, I said, gee, I know what it is to be a very weak man. And so to go through something like this and to feel like, man, I believe I'm supposed to be strong. And actually, I'm looking at the evidence and I'm going, I was strong. That is such a different, because I know 6 years ago, I would have been falling apart, man. I'd have been the stress head. I would have been anxiety. I'd been terrible for my family. And so I said,
woe is me.
Woe is me. And I was like, having experienced this, for every man, every woman out there, I would love for you to realize and to truly experience the power of having a godly belief that is so deeply ingrained and rooted in you that your life is formed, your vision is formed by that, your values, how you act is formed by that. And truthfully, whether you have beliefs that are doing that now, but to consciously take hold of those, to align them with the Word of God, and then to see your life play out it is so fulfilling. That's all I can say. So that's what sparked this episode.
Hopefully that's an encouragement for people that if you're in a difficult season or you've been through one and you didn't like the way that it went, or you just understand reality and know that difficult seasons are coming.
Yep.
Let's talk about how beliefs can prepare you for those difficult times.
100%. Well, gee, it's an impossible, I think, to say, let's define what a belief is.
Yeah.
Well, what I love about this is I was like, well, let's look at what psychology says and listen to this. And you may have heard this before. In psychology, a belief is generally defined as a mental representation or conviction that something is true, real, or exists, even if it cannot be directly proven or observed. Sounds like somebody else's definition. I know that was a lot more concise because he's Garrett Unclebach. It's Garrett's definition of belief is what you know to be true but can't be proven. And we always say scientifically.
Beliefs are things you know are true but can't prove. The scientifically meaning, science has kind of lost some of its definition. But for people our age who went to school when they taught science, right? The scientific method, verifiable, demonstrable, repeatable. You can have evidence for something, but not scientifically prove it. Right. And so I've got evidence for these beliefs, even though I can't scientifically prove them. I have chosen, right? And that's a big part of the belief. I have chosen to say, this is true for my life.
Yeah. Now, and then we're going to get into that because like you can choose to say that you can fly and you're going to find out real quick that that's not actually true.
Do you have any evidence?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So we're going to get into how beliefs are formed, but like cognitive behavioral psychology was so big for me. And they say that a belief is an internal cognitive state that guides perception, interpretation, and behavior and acts like a mental map of how the world works, which I like that. They say that beliefs are only three, that you have them about yourself, others, and the world. And so that acts as your mental map. And I think that that's a great definition as an expansion. Also, you said about science has been trashed. I heard someone say, I can't remember which podcast it was on, but they said there's a difference between the science and science. Like, and that's such a good, when you say the science, that's when you're like, buckle up.
Yeah.
Like that's what drove our country and the world insane for a few years. Anyways, so the timeline of a belief. So beliefs are formed when you're young, right? And it's largely based on the environment you're in. And you generally inherit the beliefs of those around you. Like if you can imagine, if you grew up in a war-torn area, you're going to believe that the world is a cold, harsh place full of violence. And if you then come to some peaceful country, it's going to like rattle your brain because your belief is going to be based largely on what you're around.
Right.
Now, most of the people that listen to this are in America, and I have not grown up in a war-torn country, right? I know there's different things going on depending on where you live and your.
And that actually creates some wrong beliefs for people.
Yeah, for
creates
sure.
some beliefs of entitlement, of things should just be this way.
Right.
Creates some of the sheep mentality, not in the cultural definition, but in the Colonel Grossman definition of sheep who think that wolves don't exist.
Yeah.
Right. We live in a world full of
For sure.
wolves. We just live in a country that's kicked most of them out.
Yeah. Really think about that, because what Garrett's saying is that because we don't believe that there's wolves out there, we can just sit there and mind our own business and not have to ever prepare for anything. And you better hope that you never actually meet a wolf, because if you're grossly unprepared, guess what you are? You're the prey.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of men these days. I'm speaking to the men when we say that. So going back to the timeline of belief, so you have these beliefs from a young age, and over time you test them, right? And they either get strengthened or eliminated. It's like we said when we talked about, I believe I can fly. Well, I jumped off 5 roofs, and every single time I broke X bones, and now I don't believe I can fly anymore. But over time, the ones that are strengthened, they become like mental shortcuts, right? And once you form one, it begins to filter how you interpret new information, right? And what's so interesting about that is that your brain is not wired to guide you into truth. It's wired to reinforce your beliefs. And we saw a lot of this in COVID and in different very polarizing opinions. Two people can see the same exact piece of information and interpret it wildly different. Like if you believe that people can't be trusted, guess what? You're going to start noticing behavior that confirms that belief more easily. When Dr. Robbie's on, he talked about it as the RAS, the reticular activation system.
Right.
AKA your brain is there to look for what you tell it's important. So I'm saying all that because I want you to understand the timeline of belief, because I think that most people listening to this would not be able to state very many of their beliefs. You're being guided by them. But if I said, well, what do you actually believe? Well, what do you believe about people? People are good. It's like, are they? Well, the Bible says that they're wicked and can't be trusted. Wait, you know what I mean? And so that you start getting caught in these things. But what you said that I thought was so good, G, was you said beliefs have to become an experience.
Yeah.
And that's where I thought, because you're a man who's had strong belief. What did you mean by that?
Well, I've had a lot of beliefs in my life, and you're the one that really wants to pull these out of me, and
Yes.
you've tried to understand me. I've had some beliefs in my life as it related to military experience. I've had some beliefs in my life as it relates to being great and wanting to be great, the way that I'm going to respond to experiences, all of that. I've had a lot of beliefs in my life, and we're going to list some of my beliefs here in a minute. But what I had to do with those beliefs, eventually, beliefs are kind of like potential. You can have a lot of potential, but if it never turns into anything, it's actually a very terrible thing. And the same is true with your beliefs. You've actually, at some point, you have to test your beliefs.
Yeah.
Because what beliefs are is they're a bet.
Right.
Right. Think about any belief that you've had, or the belief of, let's talk about one we've already mentioned, is a belief of following God.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty big bet to believe in God. There's a downside, but there's also a really big upside. Mm-hmm. So belief has to have a payoff. If there's no payoff for the belief,
right,
there's really not a reason to make the bet.
Right.
And again, I'm not endorsing gambling, but it's an understandable experience that a bet is a choice of I don't know for certain. It could be the ball may be in the cup on the left, or the ball may be in the cup on the right. But I think I'm more certain that I'm not 100% certain, but I'm more certain that the ball is in the cup on the left. And if there is a value in placing that bet, then you'll make a choice.
Yeah.
If there's no reward for making the choice and you're not certain, then you won't make a choice. Right? You'll just say, I don't know. But when there's great value in making the choice, you're going to choose one or the other. And so a belief has to have a payoff. And I've had beliefs in my life where I've said, man, I think the payoff would be great. Like the payoff of following God. Think about what this would look like in your life of, because I was thinking when I was talking to Nick, I was thinking about some of the people in my life that I care about that don't know the Lord yet. And I've had, Lindsay asked me this question the other day about evangelizing to people. And she said, well, how do you do it? And she was asking me specifically, not that she didn't know how to lead someone in a prayer. She's like, what are the right things to say? What are the right questions to ask? And I said, when I have these conversations with people, I've had the conversation many times before I have it with them, right? Because I really want to minister to a person. I'm thinking about how can I help guide this person? How can I help lead this person? And there's people in my life right now that I care about that don't know the Lord. And I've really thought about the question for them, why do you believe or not believe? And what would be the payoff for you in believing? Think about betting on, okay, God is real and I want to get to know him, right? That's one bet. Or the other bet is, God's not real and it doesn't matter. You can't be 100% certain about either. And so go down each of those roads.
Right.
I would rather, and this is like one of the things I want to get into today about beliefs, because beliefs do require courage.
Yeah.
But I would rather be wrong about belief than right about doubt.
Yeah.
Right. And that's accurate as it pertains to a relationship with God. And it is very accurate, I think, about many of the other beliefs we're going to talk about today, that you've got to have some courage in your belief and say, you know what, it's better. Yeah, I would rather be wrong about God than be right about than be wrong about God's not real.
Right.
Right. Like, so you need to understand where your beliefs will take you and then really get firm about making a choice of, okay, this is what I'm going to bet on and I'm going to go all in on it.
Yeah.
But what you can't do when you gamble, if you've ever gambled, and again, I'm not endorsing gambling, but what you can't do is put your money on the table and then go, oh, wait.
I didn't mean it.
Yeah, I want to do, it doesn't work that way. You have to make a choice.
Yeah. And understand that was all sparked from saying that what Garrett said about beliefs have to become an experience. And what he's talking about is you have to go out and test them. Like if it was as simple as Garrett and I could just say, here's 5 beliefs you could have, and everybody could just be like, okay, I believe them. That wouldn't really be worth anything, because it's like the experience and of testing them and the courage it takes to go out there is what reinforces and strengthens them. And you said it was like stacking bricks. One
of those beliefs in my life has been that, God is a plan. If you listen to this podcast, you heard me talk about it a million times, that God is a plan for my life.
Right.
And Nick asked me if I ever doubted that.
Yeah.
And so that's an interesting question. So because if you know my story, my parents just told me that since I was little, that God is a plan for your life. And I gathered a lot of evidence as I was growing up that God had a plan for my life. Now, there were certainly times in my teenage years where maybe, I wouldn't say I doubted that, but I questioned it.
Right.
And questioned it rightfully. So you shouldn't just absorb whatever and just take it at face value. You begin to question it in the right way. And I question, just like every teenager is going to question their parents. What'll help your teenagers question you in the right way is that you're open to it. What'll help your teenagers question you in the right way is that you're really consistent. So when they do question you, it's not like, well, you said this, but you lived this.
Yeah.
Right. My parents were do as they say people.
Yes.
Right.
Still are.
Not I need to do as I say. They did as they said.
Yeah.
And that helped me do as they say. But what helps is, or eventually for me, I had to question those beliefs, but I would say like I started to feel firm in them towards the end of my teenage years. But what made it very real for me is, again, if you know my story, my very first mission that I ever went on, my helicopter took over 300 rounds, and I thought I was going to die in that moment. And I mean, I literally took a breath and like held my breath and closed my eyes and waited to die as my helicopter's getting shredded with bullets. And in that moment, you just start to, think about your life and all those things. And when I took another breath, I just felt like the Lord spoke to me and said, I heard what I'd heard so many times. I still have a plan for your life. And so when Nick asked me, did you ever doubt that? I want to say no. But what happened is all of my life up to that moment prepared me for that moment.
Yeah.
Where in that moment and in that experience, it became very real.
Yeah.
Like this, it was another piece of evidence that God has a plan for my life.
Yeah. I think that's incredible that in the space of 2 breaths, you went from, oh man, I held this to be so true my whole life, to, oh, it is true. It gives me chills thinking about it, because you're so cemented on that, man. I've watched you walk through all sorts of stuff in the past 5 years, and I know that is like so central to who you are, is that belief. And I just think that's an incredible thing.
So the point Nick was making is that beliefs at some point your beliefs turn into experiences. What I said to Nick is it is a continuum. It's not like you can't put a belief in a box. After that experience, it's not like, well, it's 100% certain now, like I got it all figured out. Like, no, that belief has still grown since then.
Yeah.
And there have been more moments in my life where I've struggled, and there's been more moments in my life where God also showed me, right, like God honors faithfulness. And where I have been faithful to him, where I have stood on that belief, God has continually revealed himself to me and shown me I still have a plan for your life.
Yeah. And I love that you said that they have to become an experience, because our man, Tony Robbins, says that a belief is a poor substitute for an experience. And he's basically saying the same thing that you are. Like, there's no sense in just saying, I believe all this stuff. You got to get out there and like actually put something behind it. And like, you gave a very palpable, powerful experience that I don't know many people will have. If you're a sports fan like me, and I know you said I'm a sports guy in this podcast, and I'm okay with that. Sportsman. You see this all the time in sports, where it's like an underdog is playing the favorite, and they come out in the opening minutes and they give everything they got. And what happens? If they can rock and reel the favorite a little bit, what do they say? Their belief is growing. And that's exactly it. You come out there and you start to go, oh, maybe I can hang with them. It's like if you think you're getting in a fight with somebody and you think this person's going to destroy him, and they hit you and you're like, oh, that wasn't as hard as I thought.
When you fight, the greatest boxer, the undefeated boxer, and you don't knock him out, but you knock him down.
Yes.
It's like Arnold with the Predator.
Yes.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Yes.
Once you begin to believe, it changes everything.
Yeah, and if you talk to someone that fights, what do they say? They say, I want to feel the other fighter, aka like, what sort of power am I dealing with? Because if you get hit a few times, you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Like, it's Rocky. Ain't so bad. Right? But like, what happens? Your belief starts to build, and furthermore, you sow a seed of doubt into somebody else. So the point of all that, we wanted to let you understand how like what the timeline of a belief is, that they have to become an experience, and that they really are a bet, and they have incredible power. You heard what Garrett said about like how that was cemented for him throughout his whole life, and that he had that question. But in that moment when he took that breath, man, to just know, okay, like to know that God's with you, man, what would that, like, that's just the ultimate, right?
And you have to, this is life. Life is a choice for you.
Yeah.
And that's what beliefs are. Beliefs are a choice.
Right.
It's like you've heard me talk about some of the beliefs in my life where people have questioned me, and honestly, like one of the gifts that God has given me is a gift of faith, which is very similar to courage. And what a lot of people I think do with their beliefs is, I think, like where people have questioned my beliefs, I felt like they were cowards.
Right.
What they were afraid of making that choice. They were afraid of, well, what if I'm wrong? And I've just chosen to live a life where I said, well, what if I'm right?
Yeah. Well, you said that. You said something that beliefs require courage, and that cynics are typically cowards, which, like, cynicism is in some places thought of as a high form of intelligence. And you're going, yeah, you guys are cowards.
There's nothing wrong with questioning something and looking into something. But I think what a lot of cynics do is they question it as an excuse to not have to choose.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, I don't have to get on the field. Right. But instead, it's like, look, I'm going to get on the field. You've got to make a decision of like, I'm going to choose something. And I'm totally okay with questioning something. And this is where, like, there's some of the things I don't like about Christianity, where Christianity gets a bad rap, is like, oh, they're just dumb. They don't know anything about science.
Right.
Right. And it's where I've sought to be as educated as I could. I never felt the calling to go, get my master's degree or get my doctorate in science or theology and something that would give me more of a foundation. And I just didn't feel like I had to, but I have sought to be very educated because with faith and with belief, you can be looked at as an idiot.
Right.
Right. You can be like, oh, you just, science does not disprove faith. Faith stands in the gap where science has a lot of emptiness.
Yes.
Right. And so it's like we talked about the other day, it's a both issue.
Yeah.
Right. Science does not disprove God. Science goes with faith. And so with beliefs, ultimately the point I'm making is you've got to have some courage, and you've got to understand that you're going to have to make a choice.
Yeah. And by the way, shout out to all three of you that got in touch and said you knew what observer's law was, because I found that
all three of you.
Yeah, we had three people. I thought that was kind of interesting.
And for the rest of you, maybe you're not curious, but if you were, you went and got on YouTube and said, what is this? Because there are some really great, like 5 and 10 minute videos that observer's law for, the not doctorate level quantum physicists.
You know what, man? That was probably the most considerate way you could have put that. Well done. I'm impressed. Okay, so let's get into the beliefs, like the beliefs that will absolutely unleash you. But here's an underlying question for you to ask in your life. What would you need to believe in order to achieve insert whatever you want to achieve? That is an interesting question. Or what would you need to believe in order to feel the way you do about this, whatever current situation you're going in. Because there's a lot of people we know you'll be listening to.
Let me just give you a couple examples.
Okay.
What would I need to believe to have a great marriage?
Right.
What would I need to believe to be a great father?
Right.
What would I need to believe to be an admirable person?
Yeah.
What would I need to believe to become a millionaire? What would I need to believe to live a healthy life, right? We can just go down the list of things that people want, or you can have your own list of what you want, and you should have a list of what you want, and look at those things, and start to understand, what would I need to believe to be able to achieve this? If you haven't gotten that far with, what it is that you want, right? Hopefully you have that list. If you don't, that's step one. But beyond that is, okay, what would I need to believe to be able to achieve these things? And we're going to jump into a few beliefs that I think apply to all the things that people want. But more specifically, with some of the things that you want, there's going to be some specific beliefs that you need to have.
Yeah. I mean, we give beliefs that are go against fear all the time. One of the beliefs that you'd have to have if you're a fearful person is that we live in a very dangerous time where there's lots of threats. And I remember whenever we did our Man on the Street quiz in San Diego, and I asked some young Gen Z folk about if life was harder now, and they're like, oh yeah, this is like such a hard time to live. And I remember I went and I was like, well, what about back like 150 years ago when people didn't even know if they were going to make it through winter because they didn't have the technology that we have now.
I still remember you asking that kid that question. He was just looking at you like...
He just stopped and he's like, oh man, you're right. And I was like, but what does that show? For this kid, if he believes that this is a hard time to be alive, well, man, why even try?
Yeah.
Whereas if you go, this is the greatest time to be alive, the most wealthy.
He was living he's like, I'm not meant to succeed.
But that's a belief that a lot of people can relate to, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I remember early on in this podcast, I asked you some question like, what do you think the best time to be alive is? And you're like, right now, this is the greatest time to be alive. And I was kind of like thinking, I don't know, man, the '60s would be cool for rock and roll. And then when you said that, I realized like, what an empowering way to think. If we're in the best time that's ever been, oh man, like squeeze the lemon. Get all of it.
It's easier now than ever.
And that is actually true. And we could go into that. But I just wanted to highlight that because I think that's a lot of people's, a lot of people can relate to that one. Like, what do you believe about now? Is now the easiest time? Is it the most difficult time? Because a lot of how you live will be determined from that. But I just wanted to give that as an easy highlight. All right. So, G, let's get into the beliefs you should have. And believe it or not, everybody, you may have heard one or two of these before. And, of course, the very first one is the first half of the infinite potential unlock. G, what is it?
Yeah, if you don't know what the infinite potential unlock is, again, welcome. You must be new around here.
We did an episode on it.
Yeah. The infinite potential unlock, right? It's two beliefs. And the first belief is this. And again, we're going to talk about 4 beliefs here that I think every man should have.
Yes.
For whatever it is that you want. And then you need to have some specific beliefs for the things that you want. But number one belief here, I think every man should have, and it's this, that God has a plan for your life. This informs every other belief that you have. If you don't think that God has a plan for your life, when you face struggle, when you go through difficult things, you'll start to think like, oh man, I guess like I didn't hit the right lotto numbers.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
God's mad at me.
When like, well, maybe you just don't even believe in God.
Right.
Right. If you don't believe in God or don't think God has a plan for your life, when things aren't going well for you, you'll start to think like, oh man, it rained over there on that guy's crops, but it didn't rain on mine. I guess I'm not meant to succeed.
Yeah.
But when you do believe that God has a plan for your life, you can look. This is a superpower that people of faith, people following God have, that you can look at every difficult situation that you're going through and be like, okay, right? Like, I would have naturally, logically come to the conclusion, this is a terrible situation. However, I've chosen to stake my life on this belief that God has a plan for my life. So when I look at this difficult situation, I'm thinking where I would have said there's no good here, God calls this good.
Yeah.
And so it allows me to continually step into the unknown, step into the dangerous, step into the painful, and know like I would have never chosen to come here. I would have never chosen to move forward, but God has told me that this is good. And so I'll step forward, right? It changes your attitude and it changes the way that you approach any difficult situation. If you don't have this belief, whenever it gets hard, you will quit and you will walk away.
Yeah. No, and that's I was going to ask you like what it would look like to test this and what the courage, because you said you have to take a big bet. They require courage, and I think the courage is that if you believe God has a plan for your life, is that you're going to do it His way, and you're going to not panic in the moment. Because that was one of the things, like as I've been going through everything, regardless whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, I'm like, I know God's in control, and it gives a different level of peace. I think
it requires a submission, to God's plan, because 100%. Here's what I can tell you about God's plan: it's not your plan.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you're not, for me or for you. Let's just take you for example, Nick. Like I know you want to live God's plan for your life.
Yeah.
But still, God's plan is not Nick's plan.
I know, man.
Unfortunately.
No,
right?
I say fortunately.
Right? It's true for all of us.
Yeah.
So what that means is like sometimes you're gonna think like, oh man, it would be really good if this happened.
Yeah.
And that won't happen.
Right.
And what that means is God's plan was different than your plan, but that God still has a plan.
Yeah.
And again, if you don't believe this, whenever things don't go your way, you'll see that as bad.
Right.
But for me, when things don't go my way, I go, God's plan is different than mine.
Huh.
Well, good thing I'm not in charge.
Yeah.
Right. Good thing He knows better than I do. Right. So again, it allows you to look at difficult, terrible things in your life and see purpose in it. Where if you don't have that, like some of the worst things that'll ever happen to you will lead you down a road of darkness, of emptiness, of depression.
Yeah. So you would say that's how you test that belief is just your level of submission is like the courage that it takes?
How you test this belief?
Yeah.
It's the same as following God. You'll get tested in it before you like in school. You take a test, then what happens?
Right.
Later on,
right.
You see if you were right.
Right. Okay.
Like it's not like tell me now. You know, God doesn't work that way. So you have to step out in faith on this, and then later on you'll see like, oh, God had a plan.
Right.
Right. Like you see how it's good. Sometimes you see a day later, sometimes you see a week later. And for some of the things we won't see until eternity.
Yeah.
Right. But the things that God has allowed me to see in my life, where I've looked back a day later, a week later, years later, and be like, man, like God so protected me there. I look at some of the choices I made when I was a ding dong as a teenager. God protected me there. I look at some of the things that happened to me in the SEAL teams, right? Where God like very specifically directed my steps to put me into a place that leads me to where I am today.
Yeah.
Right. Where I could have gone down any of these good roads. Like there were, 4 good roads in front of me, and God didn't pick the one that I would have picked, but God put me down this path, and it led me to where I'm at today. And I look back at that and I see God's hand on my life. Right. So you're not gonna, the way that you do this is one, you have to test it.
Yeah.
Right. You can't get the answers to the test before the test with God.
Yeah.
You've got to make a choice. But then when you make a choice, you get the opportunity to see evidence later.
Man, and that's what breaks so many people is the need to know. It's like, oh, but I just, this isn't going the way I thought it would. And so I'm going to step in and you start trying to do things your own way. And I'm glad you answered that the way you did.
And unfortunately, some people, this is going to hurt their feelings, but that's cowardly. It is cowardly to say I won't go on the field unless I know I'll win. Yeah,
100%. That's great. That's a great point, G. All right, number 2 is the second half of the infinite potential unlock. And don't worry, the last 2 are not the ones that you've heard before.
It's a great reminder, though.
It is a great reminder because what's that, G? Men have to be told once and reminded often, right? You say it all the time.
Reminded many times, and I said this at Mighty Men the other day. But one of the things that's really funny is, I say that to the men all the time, but sometimes I speak to audiences with women in it, and when I say that to an audience, it's half men, half women. All the women laugh.
Well, and the guys are like, "What's funny?" Because it's true.
It's true. But it's true. It's true for the ladies as well.
It's true for all of us. Belief number 2 is you can have anything you want if you're willing to pay the price. Man, what I want you to go into that a little bit. But what I love about that, this to me is like the endurance piece, because if you believe that, you'll keep going because the assumption is, well, I just must not have paid the price yet. Whereas if you don't believe that, you're going to quit because, it doesn't matter what I do. Sometimes you just can't win.
There's a lot here. You can have anything you want as long as you're willing to pay the price for it. Proverbs says, as a man thinketh, so is he. Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And for like, this is a dangerous belief.
Right.
It's a dangerous one because sometimes you won't get what you want. Sometimes you will think you can and it doesn't work out.
Right.
And then you get really tested in this belief. And the test is, will you reject reality or will you reject yourself? Right. And what I mean by that is when when you think you can and it doesn't work out, are you going to say, oh, that because it hurts to be wrong.
Yeah.
It hurts to say like, oh, I can do this. And then you don't. And what will make you feel better, what will put some ointment on your boo-boo in that moment is to say like, it wasn't my fault.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like, wasn't my mistake. But the men who have achieved, the men who have grown, the men who have succeeded, men like Henry Ford, when they failed, they said, that's because of me.
Right.
But if you can say when you fail, that was me, what that allows you to also do is one day succeed.
Right.
Right. Where I've messed up, where I've, made mistakes, I can fix those things. If you're willing to own the failures, you get to walk into success.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, the pain of owning the failure, they would rather say it's not my fault. I didn't do that. Like, just bad luck, the universe, whatever. And then you're stuck where you're at, right? Your pain got taken away, but then you get the pain of plateau. You will be where you are until you go back. And here's the scary part. A lot of people get down this road in their lives for a long time, years, decades in their life of mistakes, saying, not me, not my fault. Now I'm 45 and I've been stuck in the same place in my life for the last 15 years. And I'm just now, or maybe not 45, maybe you're 55, maybe you're 60, and you're having to wrestle with this and realize like, man, I've actually believed some of the wrong things.
Yeah.
And it gets really hard and painful when you realize like, I need to change some of the way that I am. I need to change some of my belief. And what this also means is the last 15 years of mistakes in my life were also my fault.
Yeah. That'll crush a man.
It doesn't have to.
Right.
It's certainly painful, but that's where you've got to understand, okay, and I've got a belief here at the end that'll help you with that one. But when you believe that God has a plan for your life, then you believe whether I think I can or I think I can't, I'm wrong. I'm right. That whatever I want in life, I can get it if I'm willing to pay the price for it. It's a difficult thing to wrestle with this. But what you're saying is, if I'm willing to pay the price, I can grow to the next level. I can get the next thing. It's easy. It's much easier to just say, you know what I got, and that stuff didn't work out for me, and I'd rather just feel good about myself. I don't want to feel good about myself. I want to stand in front of the Lord and hear, well done, good and faithful servant. Yeah. And what I don't want to do is talk myself into a sense of comfortability when really I'm abandoning my destiny in doing so.
Yeah. What's so killer about that is I don't think anybody that has pulled the parachute and just said, oh, it wasn't my fault, will realize that they're just kind of numbing the pain. They'll really believe that story. I think there's a lot of people that get disillusioned because I hope that they would have that wake-up moment that you described at some point. I think for a lot of people, they don't ever do that. They come up with another story that's just,
When you break your arm, before you put it in a cast, you have to set the bone.
Yeah.
And that's the part that really sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
Right. But a lot of people, they break their arm and they're like, well, let's just give me some pain medicine and put it in a cast.
Right.
And you didn't set the bone beforehand. Right. You have to look at like, okay, what actually happened and what's the corrective behavior I have to do so that I can grow on from this correctly.
Yeah, man. There's so much in that, G. I would always add, and I think I've said this before, caveat, you'll find out the price when you're done. It's like if you went to buy a car and you said, hey, I really like this truck. How much is it? Oh, you'll find out. Well, when? Just start making payments. Well, I'm not going to do that. That's literally the price. That's how the price works for the vast majority of things you really want. Like business owners will know this. You start out on a business because you think, I have a great idea, or I'm really passionate about this. And it's like, oh, I've got to hire people. Oh, I've got to actually like do some bookkeeping. Oh, you mean that like I've got to learn how to market and learn how to do all these things that I didn't want to do as part of this business? I just wanted to be the product guy. you start a business, you got to find people to buy it, and that's so common. Anyways, okay, so G, that's the first year of the infinite potential unlock. Let's get into the bonus beliefs.
So belief number 3 builds right on top of belief number 2.
Yeah.
Right. If you take this on, right, if you go through the situation of, well, I thought I could, and then I didn't, and this is really painful for me. Here's the third belief, and this is an important one, and it's that failure doesn't define me. A lot of people, if you think it does, if you think failure does define you, you'll run from it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no one wants to be labeled a failure. Inside all of us is like this wrestling of becoming, this wrestling of who am I, of what does it mean to be me. And the fact that something could like label you as terrible, as weak, as wrong, as a failure, right? You'll run from that thing. Yeah. If you think that like, as if I can slap this sticker on your chest, you're a failure for the rest of your life.
Right.
You would run as hard as you could from that thing.
Yeah.
But what if you could look at, that, like, if it kind of makes it a silly analogy, which is a good thing. Maybe this will help somebody. If you look at failure as a guy trying to put a sticker on your chest, just walk up to him and let him put the sticker on your chest. Be like, thanks, man. Right? Like, I'll put that on my notebook and just keep going down the sidewalk.
Right.
A lot of people run from that. Like, man, like, what if you put the sticker on my chest that says failure, like, this is who I am for forever. But if you can take mistakes, if you can take losing, if you can take getting embarrassed, if you can take getting beat up, and be willing to stand back up and say, okay, right, like, that's not who I am. It is something that I did, right? Like, I made a mistake. There's some mistakes that are really painful. That'll stick with you for a long time. I got a DUI. I cheated on my wife. I stole from my business partner. These are things that, like, it hurts to deal with that. But if you do those things and you can get up and say, you know what, but I can change, right? I don't have to be that way for forever. And there's certainly consequences that come with some of those things. But also, if you can say, like, I can still, God still has a plan for me. Whether I think I can or I think I can't, I'm right.
Yeah.
And I think I can be better than that. I don't think I have to be that way for the rest of my life. I think I can change. And you don't let failure define you. It is like the most encouraging, exciting thing in your life when you realize, like, what I've done is not who I am.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite stories of this is of a guy named Michael Mansour. Michael Mansour, Medal of Honor winner. Michael Mansour died by jumping on a grenade and saving his team's life. 3 guys. And I feel a bit of a special connection to Michael Mansour just because 2 of the guys that were on that roof with him both influenced my life.
Yeah.
And I both heard them. Those aren't stories you tell very often.
Yeah.
But I've both heard them tell Mike's story. And those guys influenced me. And so beyond the fact that he's a Medal of Honor winner and you should just respect those guys, I have personal gratitude for Mike because the people's lives he saved impacted my life.
Yeah.
But Mike jumped on a grenade, saved his team's life. This is like one of the most heroic actions in SEAL team history. And what most people don't know about Mike, I think people are just scared to say it because they think it discredits him, but I think it's actually one of the coolest parts of his story, that Mike quit his first time at Buds. Right. He went to SEAL training and quit. He quit at 19, came back at 24 or 25, and went through Buds again, and then went on to be, and he'll be remembered for forever.
Yeah.
Right? Like, one of the most significant training bases is named after him. There's a couple really big monuments to him on the SEAL training base, and he's one of the Medal of Honor winners. And he like his action also informed the SEAL ethos, right? Like, there's so many like Mikey is like an essential piece of who SEALs are for forever now. He'll always be remembered. And he quit his first time at Buds. I've told his story to guys tadpoles I've worked with that have quit. And I said, look, we've talked about on this podcast too, a lot of the times failure does define you, but it doesn't have to.
Right.
It's a choice that you make, right? Like, you've got to stand on this belief that failure doesn't define me. What a lot of guys, they quit and they're like, man, this is terrible. I don't ever want to do this again. That's okay. Like, that's a comfortable thing to make that choice. I said, or you can decide, I'm going to go back and I know I can do it. I know it's within me. And because a lot of guys, they quit and they realize they made a bad decision.
Right.
And that's all it was. right? Like go back again and make the right decision.
Yeah.
Failure doesn't define you.
So good. There's a great quote from a guy we both respect, Alex Hormozy, and it says, "Success and failure are on the same road. Failure is just an earlier exit." And I saw that.
That's really good.
It's
I like
such
that.
a good quote.
That's very Hormozy.
Yeah, I saw that on his social media, and I was like, I'm going to remember that. I, of course, butchered it, so fortunately I was able to look it up because the version in my head was like 3 sentences long. That probably doesn't surprise you.
He does good at brevity.
Yeah, which I know that matters a lot to you. Okay, so speaking of brevity, G, what is belief number 4? And I love this one, by the way.
Your destiny will require all of you.
Oof.
And what does this belief mean? It means that you can't outrun your destiny.
Right.
Like the Bible says, God has more than you can ask, think, or imagine. That's what's there for you. And so what that means for me is, and this is like, you can't understand how God works, okay? Here, I'll try to explain it though, the way that God's working in my life and that he's working in yours. It's like when my kids, I get them a nice gift and I bring it home and I'm like, here you go, I got you this. And 30 seconds later, it's broken.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. Well, luckily, I can fix your child's toy, right? I can fix a kid's toy.
Right.
And I can give it back to him. And God's really good at working this way with us, that even though I have made mistakes, like God still has a path for me. God still has a plan for me. But what I do know is that I could choose to miss my destiny.
Right.
Which means that I can also choose to get there.
Yeah.
Right. I could choose to walk away from it. And again, this is more than what we can really quantify and understand. The same way that God is sovereign, man is responsible. I don't understand all the things that God does. What I do understand is that he's given me a choice.
Right.
If he's given me a choice to walk away from my destiny, he's also given me the choice to walk into all of it.
Yes.
And so you can't outrun it. As hard as you can run, as much as you can do, you're just achieving God's plan for your life.
Right.
And so if that's true, if I couldn't outrun it, why would I do less than give all that I have?
Yeah.
Because if I do less than give all that I have, and God had a plan for my all, every decision that I make to quit, every decision that I make to give up, every less than decision in my life, I'm leaving destiny on the table.
Yeah. I love the way you said it when we were preparing, is you said anytime you slow down, give up, doubt, or feel sorry for yourself, you're leaving destiny on the table. And that's when this belief is questioned. So I hope if you have a day whenever it's tough or whatever's going on, or you feel like wasting some time or whatever it may be, I hope you kind of think to yourself and remind yourself, hey, is my destiny going to require all of me? Yes, I believe that. And then you take action and you seize the day and make the most of it. This is the Today Matters thought process, is that we believe that our destiny is going to require all of us, so that every day matters. I literally say Today Matters every day to myself. I have a light that was gifted to us. We each have one that was gifted to us by our friend James, who's on Mindset Mastery over in the UK. Shout out to James. Tally ho.
I'm looking at mine. It's right behind you.
It's right behind me. And like I love turning it on because it's like a reminder for my brain. Today matters. Like every single thing I do matters. Why?
It's one or the other. It either matters or it doesn't.
Yeah.
And what are you saying about your life if you say today doesn't matter?
Well, gee, it's interesting that you say that, because destructive belief number 1 that we identify, we're only going to give you 2.
Nick asked me, he said, well, what are like the worst beliefs you could have? And I thought about it for a second. I said, well, the worst belief, like to destroy your life, right? To make your life amount to nothing. Here's what I would do to somebody if I wanted their life to amount to nothing. I would make them think that nothing they could do in their life mattered.
Right.
If you thought that my life doesn't matter, you would waste it.
Yeah.
You just throw your rock in the pond. Well, didn't matter. Nothing happened.
Right.
Right. Nothing. Like, what a terrible thought. What a terrible belief to think that my life has no impact. Right. It's easy to look at other people's life, look at a big person's life, and think like, oh, my life doesn't matter as much as theirs. That I'm not saying that's illogical to think that, but also you have no idea.
Right.
You really don't know what your life could be. You don't know what's in front of you.
I love that.
You also don't know some of the small things that you could do that could have an incredibly dramatic impact on somebody else's life.
Yeah.
Right? For example, just like Mikey knew he was saving those guys' lives. And I'm not saying that I'm a significant part of Mike's story, because I'm not at all. But what Mike didn't even know is all the people's lives that are impacted because of him.
Yeah.
Right? The children that exist because of him.
Yeah.
Right. And so you do one thing with your life and you have no idea the impact that it actually has. So how foolish of you, how arrogant of you to say my life doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, are you the master of the universe? You know what tomorrow holds. You know what's going to happen 10 years from now, 50 years, 100 years from now. You know that the children that you have would never achieve anything. You know the people that you've impacted would never achieve anything. What an arrogant thought.
Man, so good. I don't even want to add anything to that because I think that was, that's so good, G. What is the second destructive belief?
This is a little creeper. This one will get in there.
It'll get you.
And if you find this getting into your life, you've got to get rid of it. This is an incredibly destructive belief that everything in my life is not my fault.
Yeah.
And that might have stung just a little bit. Now, what you heard there, everything in my life is not my fault. What the right belief is that, and this is the way Jim Rohn says it, right? Like your life begins to change when you take responsibility for every single thing in your life.
Yep.
And is it your fault that you got cancer? Is it your fault that you got molested? That's not what I'm saying, right? I'm not saying the most terrible things like you did this to yourself. What you do get to do is choose how you respond to it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the part where you have to take ownership and take responsibility of what's happening in your life. You can't control everything, but you can control yourself. But here's what'll ruin your life is if those terrible things do happen to you, right? If cancer or getting molested or getting your spouse dying, some of these most terrible things, if you let that say, well, my life is over now, right? There's nothing else. If I can't control that, I must not be able to control anything else. You let one bad thing turn into a lie that ruins the rest of your life.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's a very common thing that we see in society. And I mean, if you're not somebody that's had those horrible things that happen to you, I would really challenge you to start looking at how did you react to some of the things because everybody's going to have something that was the hardest thing in their life for them, right? It's a very subjective scale.
Sure.
And so like on the one hand, you can be like, well, I know other people have it worse and you just always write your own stuff off. Or you can stop and go, you know what? This was probably the most difficult thing that I ever had in my life. Well, how am I thinking about that? What do I really believe about what happened in that? And when you start getting into that stuff, I will tell you from personal experience, it hurts. It freaking hurts, man. You have to be prepared to sit down and face the pain of some of the poor decisions or the poor ways that you've responded to things. But man, therein lies the power. It's like Viktor Frankl. You have a choice between stimulus and response, and in that choice is your power. It's your freedom.
So when good things, when bad things happen to you, the only question is, what are you going to do about it?